17 January 2009. Love Under the Bombs. Making love under the bombs, I remember a friend from Nablus once telling me how difficult it was during the occupation to reserve a moment of intimacy with his wife. One evening, while they lay in a tender embrace, a bullet lodged itself in their headboard, inches away from their heads. In Gaza these days, canoodling under the bombs is out of the question, and the conjugal future of young Palestinian couples is shaping up to be quite a challenge. Many have lost their homes and are forced to live huddled together in the UNRWA schools, or crammed inside a tiny apartment with as many as 20 people. Tonight is Saturday, and the young couples in Tel Aviv go out and have fun in the clubs or on the beach. Meanwhile, out here, we can't even make love in our own beds, says Wissam, who got married in November. We do have strobe lights, though, he says, pointing to a succession of flashes to the south, the evidence of bombing in full swing. Young men like Wissam, himself aged 19, become fathers very early in life and are already grandfathers by middle age, being aware that, as they are in Palestine, this is the only form of survival available to them. While there's talk on the outside of a ceasefire accepted by Hamas, but, as usual, rejected by Israel, in the last 2 days there's been an escalation of bombings, with a subsequent boost in civilian deaths, 60 only yesterday. About 10 were killed outside the mosque at the time of prayer. What worries Palestinians the most is the call for a ceasefire without reopening the border crossings at the same time. Even before materials for reconstruction are let in, food supplies are urgently needed, and those who've been seriously injured need to get out. Hospitals are overwhelmed from the overcrowding. In the entire strip, they have a capacity of only 1,500 beds, but the number of the wounded presently hovers at around 5,320. In addition, Palestinian public opinion mistrusts Egypt, the chosen intermediary for the talks, whose leadership is notoriously obsequious to Israel. Why not have a European country mediate? The role of Germany, a truly neutral country, was decisive in the resolution of the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, says a heavy-hearted Hamza, a university professor. This morning, another UN school in Beit Lahia, in the northern Gaza Strip, was heavily hit by Israeli tanks. There were 14 injured, and 2 little brothers, Bilal and Mohammed al-Ashkar, aged 5 and 7, were killed. Their mother survived but lost both her legs. Along with the 42,000 others, they had sought shelter in the school after Israel had ordered them to evacuate their homes. They believed they'd be safe there, just like the 43 refugees exterminated on the 6th January in the UNRWA school massacre in Jabalia. These 2 children were without a doubt innocent, just as there isn't a shadow of a doubt that they're now dead, says John Ging, the director of UNRWA's field operations in Gaza, who tirelessly, albeit in vain, continues to report the war crimes committed by the Israeli army. But the Israeli generals are still busy preparing the quote-unquote mission accomplished speech they intend to deliver to the world. I went back to what's left of Tal el-Hawa Hospital, the part still standing after the building was set on fire by the Israelis. It has now started operating as a first aid unit and logistical base for ambulances again. They continue to extract casualties trapped for days under the rubble found around its seriously damaged buildings. Al-Shifa Hospital hosts a child called Suhaib Suleiman, the only survivor in a family of 25, all of whom are dead. A young girl, Haidel Simoni, lost 11 relatives. She'll have no one to take care of her after being discharged from hospital. Excuse me, but can someone please explain what kind of mission this is? It's straight from collective punishment to mass slaughter. On his blog, a frustrated Arab called Raja Shemayel sums it up as follows. Take a strip of land about 40 kilometers long and only 5 kilometers wide. Call it Gaza. Then cram in 1.4 million inhabitants. After that, surrounded by the sea to the west, Egypt with Mubarak in the south, Israel in the north, and dub it the land of terrorists. After that, declare war against it and invade it with 232 tanks, 687 armored vehicles, 43 airports for fighter jets, 105 war helicopters, 221 units of ground artillery, 349 mortars, 3 spy satellites, 64 informers, 12 spies, and 8,000 assault troops. Then call all of this Israel defending itself. After that, stop for a minute and state that you will, quote, avoid hitting the civilian population, and call yourself the only democracy in action. Whichever way you look at it, only a miracle could prevent you hitting those civilians, or it could quite simply be a lie. But once again, just call it Israel defending itself. Now comes the question, what would happen if the invader turned out to be a liar? What would happen to those unarmed civilians? With such firepower, how could even Mother Teresa or Mickey Mouse avoid hitting all those civilians considering the situation? Call it whatever you like, but Israel knew damn well those unarmed people were out there. It was Israel itself that put them there. So go ahead and call it genocide. It's much more credible. Aside from a couple of brutally assassinated leaders, Hamas hasn't suffered from this attack, and certainly hasn't lost its popularity. If anything, they've gained some more. Once in a while, it would be wise to remember that Hamas aren't a bunch of terrorists nor a political party, but a movement, and as such, they're impossible to neutralize with storms of cluster bombs. When I ask Palestinians for their opinions on the real agenda behind this brutal massacre, many say it has everything to do with the Israeli elections in February. They made successful propaganda, one vote at a time. It's always been like this on the eve of all elections. Just a month ago, Benjamin Netanyahu was forecast to be the sure winner, but he's now expected to lose in competing against the bloodthirsty vision of Ehud Olmert and Tzipi Livni. Avigdor Lieberman is the leader of Yisrael Beitanu, a growing political force that had won 11 seats after the 2006 elections. But the polls show that they are gaining in popularity even while alluding to the use of a nuclear option against Hamas, as the Americans did against the Japanese at the end of World War II. Yesterday, Israeli writer Abraham Yehoshua stated to Haaretz, "We kill their children today to save many more tomorrow." I'm afraid that now his book, Journey to the End of the Millennium, has ended up on board a tank in front of a hospital in flames. Voltaire invited us to respect all opinions. I would suggest stopping the sowing of seeds of hatred, sprinkling them with blood, and feeding them with terminal resentment. Stay human.